Welcome to the Successful Thinking Podcast, where I will share with you the elements for a successful thinking process, and we will talk to people who have a successful thinking mindset. Hello, welcome back to the Successful Thinking Podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me. He's the co-founder of Sports Fund Marketing, three-time international best-selling author, top 100 business coach, and host of the top entrepreneur podcast, The Playbook, and much more. He's David Meltzer. David, welcome to Lisbon. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thanks for having me, Nuno.
It's an honor to have you. I'm a huge fan, as I told you. I love the content, the journey you're having of delivering value to people. And your mission is to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. Why?
Well, it all started, my daughter was 12 and one of her friends committed suicide. And it set me forth on a journey to try to understand why people weren't happy. And what I found was it wasn't just 12-year-olds or 18-year-olds or 28 or 38 or 48 or 50. It was everyone. It was a new pandemic of unhappiness to the point where people are taking their own lives. And so I've worked through the 4 basic values that I teach, 5 daily practices to help people make a lot of money, help a lot of people themselves, and have a lot of fun, because I've never met anyone who makes a lot of money, helps a lot of people, and has a lot of fun that's unhappy.
How do you pretend to do it, to get to these 1 billion people?
That's the most common question. And at first I was overwhelmed with the idea. I had literally goose pimples when I thought of it. I'm like, how am I going to tell my wife, especially after everything I've been through, that my mission in life is to empower over 1 billion people? But like everything else, once I broke it down, the math, 1,000 people like you, Nuno, that have their own podcasts, to empower 1,000 people, to empower 1,000 people. So 1,000 times 1,000 is 1 million, 1 million times 1,000 is 1 billion. It's really, I started realizing, not as big of an idea that I thought, so maybe I'm just asking for crumbs. I know Sadhguru, one of my dear friends, he's going to empower the entire world to be happy. He told me I could take about 1 billion off his hands.
One of the things I'm going to talk on this podcast is a little bit also about self-development. People are influenced by their life experience. The life experience shapes their thinking process. There's people with more conditions than others, people more fortunate, but in the end, it's everyone has their own thinking process. How can people understand that despite the experiences, they can have a successful thinking process?
Yeah, I think most people don't realize in the successful thinking process, you have to have one, to me, determinative, and that's that there's something bigger than you. Let me explain why. If you believe there's something bigger than you, then you can believe that that's something bigger than you, the omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing source that's bigger than you, cares about you as much as you may care about your children or your mom cares about you. Why is this important? Because when pain happens, setbacks, failures, and mistakes, which usually discourage, diminish, or dissipates our dreams, they actually now become propellers. They propel us to something better. Just as if you were 3 years old and you saw a fire for the first time and you decided, oh, that looks so good, I'm going to reach my hand in the fire, and your mom slaps your hand and screams at you, you think you're being punished, but you're not, because she knows more about the fire than you do. Well, if you believe there's something bigger than you that knows more about everything, now every time you get your hand slapped, you're not being punished, you're being propelled to something better and being protected, not punished.
That's a very interesting point of view, to understand exactly, instead of being punishment, no, it's protection as well.
Correct.
Which elements do you think are key for a person to have a successful thinking process? I don't mean that what they need to be successful, but what do they need to have a successful thinking process?
Well, in order to have a successful thinking process, you need to make decisions that are aligned with your value. So if you're investing, for example, you should know your timing and risk tolerance. If you know your timing and risk tolerance, all investments aligned with, synergistic, and supplementary to your timing and risk tolerance are good investments. Well, what I've done is created 5 daily practices, which, as you know, I send to everyone, david@dmeltzer.com. You can get these things. It's know what you want every day. What do you want personally, experientially, giving-wise, receiving-wise? Then you can determine who can help you and who you can help. Then you can determine the most efficient, effective, and statistically successful way to get it done. How am I going to get this done with the lenses of productivity, accessibility, and gratitude? Then the harder part, which most people find and procrastinate or they're considered to be lazy, what's important? See, once you know what's important to you, once you know your non-negotiables for you, it's easy to have successful thinking because thinking is decision making. And if you know what's important to you, it's easy to make decisions. And if you make decisions, you're not in search of what you already have. You actually realize what you have, so you're applying your why. You're not looking and searching for your why.
Still in the self-development, I would like to go more to the professional life of people, because it's where most of us spend most of our day. There was an article in Forbes that said less than 50%, and I quote, less than 50% of US workers feel they're in good jobs. So more than 50% are not happy with their job. I would like you to ask if you could develop on the video, on the short film that you have, which is The Power of Persistence. What should be the mindset of people towards their life, more specifically to the professional life?
Well, first of all, to define your professional life is defining activities. Once you realize that everyone has 24 hours of activity and that you yourself have activity you get paid for and activity you don't get paid for. So you get to do everything. And what you do is utilize the great chain of feeding to see what's feeding me at the activity I get paid for and what's bleeding me with the activity I get paid for. And you can go ahead and allow things that bleed you to fall away, but you can fire them from your life as well. So I'm very good at finding the light, the love, and the lessons in all the activity that I get paid for. First of all, once you distinguish activity by getting paid and not getting paid, it's a lot easier to, 1, appreciate what you have, 2, acknowledge it, acquire the knowledge of what you have, and then finally ask for more. And then utilizing this mindset, you will enjoy the consistent everyday, persistent without quit pursuit of your potential in all your activities, not just the activity you don't get paid for, but the activity you get paid for. I don't think people realize, I do am more productive than most people on earth, and I get paid for more than most people on earth, but I also enjoy all the activities where other people will be like, oh, you gotta travel. I landed a few hours ago here in Portugal from California, and most people would dread that. I got so much done, and I'm so productive. I really focused in on bringing the light, the love, and the lessons from the trip.
Thank you. I've got here an interesting post from Instagram that my girlfriend shared with me. It's from El País, because she's Spanish, which is a famous newspaper in Spain. And the post said, "My daughter wants to become the second violinist, not the first one or the solo player. She wants to peacefully play as secondary player because that's what makes her happy. The world is made for us to be number one, to compete, to be number one. What would you say to people so that they understand that they could follow their dreams, even if the dream is exactly being number 2?
Oh, that's easy for me. There's 3 things that you need to do, and it doesn't matter what place you consider yourself, second, first, third, fifth, the best is, number 1, are you doing your best? So her daughter that wants to be number 2, the question should be, is she doing her best? 2, is she learning lessons, growing, expanding, and accelerating? And 3, having fun. See, if you determine all the activity that you have in these 3 aspects, am I doing my best? Am I learning lessons and having fun? You're going to expand, grow, and accelerate and be happy with whatever you are. See, comparison is the thief of joy, because quantum nature determines what potential we have, and all of us have different potentials, and society itself determines what potentials are considered to be valuable and which ones are considered to be even detrimental. So I'll give you a quick story. SAP CEO had a very difficult time finding people to test the software. And the reason is it's very repetitive behavior, and human beings don't like to do the same things all day and night. Well, he came home perplexed, figuring out how am I going to hire thousands of testers, and he looked over at his son who has Asperger's. He's on the spectrum, and he noticed that people on the spectrum with Asperger's, that they like doing things again and again and again. So he actually has now hired thousands of people that were considered to be deficient. Now they're considered to be superpowered, and they make six figures a year. Everybody wins. See, you can move something as a weakness and make it a strength, or put something as a strength and make it a weakness, but you have to do those three things, right? Do your best, learn lessons, and have fun. Don't worry about comparison.
Yeah, I take that in a very personal note, because I manage a few people, and what I tell them is exactly, do your best. Things will be noticed. If you're doing the best, I'm not saying I will be looking for the things you do, but your colleagues will notice you're doing your best. So yeah, I take it very, very personally. And with this, as a manager, and for a lot of people, manager or middle managers, or how can we develop our empathic skills?
Yeah, so empathy is not the ability to sympathy. So first of all, distinguish sympathy from empathy. So it's not walking a mile in someone's shoes. You can't feel bad enough to make someone feel good. You can't be sick enough to make someone well. You can't be poor enough to make someone rich. Empathy is the capability of forgiving yourself. See, once we have the certainty of forgiveness in our lives, we're able to evaluate our own activities without judgments or conditions on other people's activities. I'll give you an example. I was driving and somebody cut me off in the car. Immediately I got mad. And I went to, F-bombs, and but then I remembered stop, drop, and roll, and I laughed at myself because I said to myself, I wonder how many people I've cut off in my life. So I forgave myself, and then it was easy to forgive the other person. This is empathy. And what happens is when there's the need to be offended, right, separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, guilty, angry, all these ego-based consciousness, if you take a second and stop and utilize empathy through forgiveness of saying, have I done this or others done, is this really, rule number 6, am I going to take myself so seriously to let this ruin my day because someone accidentally cut me off? Right? No, not a chance. And that happens all day long. So empathy is the ability to forgive yourself.
Okay, thank you. On the other side, how can you develop the assertiveness, to be assertive?
Well, assertiveness is based off of asking. See, assertive people aren't just doing their best, they're asking for help. It's actually radical humility that determines our assertiveness. Most people are not humble enough to ask for help. We all like to give. And people say, oh, he's so humble, he gives so much. No, that's really not humility. A lot of people give to receive. They give as a trade or a negotiation. They give as an expectation to get something back. The true humility comes when you can find someone that sits in the situation that you want to be in and ask them for help. So I tell everyone, you want to change your life, ask for help in person, on the phone, via email, traditional media, digital media. The more ask, the bigger ask, the better off you'll be.
Now, David, before finishing, I want to understand more your thinking process. I know you're going to do some talks here at Web Summit. One about build your brand, find your frequency, and when and how to raise money. One of the most known phobias in the world is exactly to do public speaking. So I see you speaking, and I see you speaking with joy. How do you convert this adrenaline? For example, sometimes can be more anxiety. But how do you convert this into joy?
Practice. I can tell you, people don't practice. And I was blessed. I spoke at the Sydney Theater. Thousands and thousands of people. Like here at Web Summit, 40,000 people. My kids, they were in Sydney, Australia with me, and they said, Dad, aren't you nervous, right, converting this to joy? I said, no, not at all. I said, why don't you come on stage with me and clap once, and would you be nervous? I'll just get on stage and clap and then leave. I said, yeah, just one clap. Can you do that? And they're like, yeah. Would you be nervous? No. Well, I've practiced what I do. It's just a bunch of claps all together. And so for me, the comfort level of understanding how the conscious continuum works, by practicing things so the cellular memory that we have, all of our senses are aligned and working and collaborating and working together with the subconscious. All of those neural pathways have been formed with the different lessons and stories that I teach, and then it becomes quantum in my nature, and that I feel so comfortable that I'm accessing information that isn't even mine. You know, a great songwriter, a great musician, artist, a book writer, an author like myself, or someone who speaks on stage, they're flowing through them, right? I call it downloading, right? I walk off stage and someone said, "Oh, can you give me that same speech?" I said, "Absolutely not." And they're like, "Why not?" I said, "Because I don't remember what I said." Because it comes through me, not for me. And I'm not listening. One of the other things I learned as a speaker, I used to speak to people. Now, the reason I do all the meetups around the world, the reason I do so many Q&As is so that I can understand what people are listening for. So I'm not talking to them, I'm understanding what they're listening for and speaking through me to what they're listening for.
David, then last question. Since it's about successful thinking, if you could define in one word, if you had to think on one word to better define successful thinking, what would it be?
Kindness. That's
and why?
Easy. Oh, because kindness is the true acknowledgement of who you are. When you are kind, you are affirming, recollecting, reminding, and remembering that you're connected to and through the greatest source of power, light, love, lessons. The omniscient, all-powerful source is coming through you, unlimited. You're living, even for a moment, between limitlessness and infinity when you're kind.
David, thank you very much for your time. It was indeed an honor to talk to you.
Thank you, Neil.
Enjoy Web Summit. And guys, I hope you enjoyed the content and see you on my next episode.
Thank you.